Hi, Chloe. Welcome to my show.
Thank you very much.
TV.
Yes, thank you.
You were telling me that you started in theater designing lights.
Yes.
How is any relation? Do you transfer any of that experience to your current work in any sense, or your interest?
There's certainly, it's interesting, in New York in particular, a lot of early internet businesses were started by people who were also in the theater, and not just because we had a lot of time on our hands. A couple of the things that I think are characteristic of the theater that help thinking about the internet are you're willing to try things, you're willing to experiment. Failure is a learning experience. I mean, mainly what the rehearsal process is failing enough in an interesting enough ways that you can put together something. You're also comfortable with the idea that there's both technical and aesthetic aspects of any given effort. And so there's not a lot about the daily work of making a theater piece that goes into thinking about the internet, but there is a lot of the idea of figuring out how to fail in informative ways that is the same in both fields.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking too about what to do in an environment that you have some possible value with people taking part, sharing information in the organization. How you could move people that is not used to use social networks? Everybody is in Facebook now, but how you could move to share people value at work with social network?
The commonest lesson that's for any large collaborative effort has been that the easiest way to get to a system that's large and good is to start with a system that's small and good and grow, rather than starting with a system that's large and bad and trying to make it better. Wikipedia started with a handful of participants. Linux started with a handful of participants. So the critical thing is not to worry about how can we get everybody starting to use this, how can we advertise this to everybody all at once. The critical question is how can I get 30 people to care enough that it becomes self-sustaining? Because if you can do that, you can create a culture where the value is obvious, and then you can add more people as you go. And a lot of places that want to harness collaborative efforts go with the press release model. I'll tell everybody all at the same time, and they'll all get so excited that they'll pile in. But it turns out to work much better to have a small core of people who set a culture of participation and sharing and add people as you go along, rather than trying to start with everybody all at the same time.
And finally, you were telling me about your next book, what you're working on, or what are your future projects?
Yeah, so the next book is really about motivation. It's about, we have been in this period now for almost 15 years of constant cultural surprise that people are participating on the internet, that they're doing things in an active and engaged and social way. Because compared to television consumption, right, all of the behaviors around the internet are surprising. And so what I'm looking at is essentially what is it that's motivating people to build things and share things and work together on the internet, since it clearly isn't money and it clearly isn't passive consumption like sitting at home and watching television. And I think figuring out the ways that our motivations to feel competent, autonomous, and connected to one another have been unleashed by the internet in ways that I don't think, even people who thought the internet was a big deal have been surprised by how much those three motivations have changed things.
I have another question that is more a political thing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think this practice about organizing without organization is changing the way that politicians will have to face how to relate with the citizens?
Well, there's at least two big changes in politics. One is that politicians are having to explain themselves more. Just last year, when Korea announced that it was going to start importing American beef again after the mad cow disease breakout of 2003. the Korean government just made a deal with the American government, and that was that. And the beef was going to come, and hundreds of thousands of Korean citizens turned out in the streets. And the government realized it's no longer enough to just do what we decide we need to do. We have to also take the people along with us, right? We have to explain our actions and justify them. And sometimes that means doing different things than you would if you don't have to explain things to people. The second thing is that very often many of the functions that were previously performed solely by organizations on the people's behalf can now be done by the people themselves. The Obama campaign is, I think, probably the high watermark of that in the United States, where Obama supporters were in many cases the people most responsible for taking Obama's message to the public. And what that means is that politicians who figure out how to get the public involved, who solve that first question, then are just at a competitive advantage to politicians who don't. And so we're going to start to see that pattern show up in election after election after election, where not just broadcasting your message out to the people, but getting people involved in actually understanding and re-explaining your message to one another is going to turn out to be a huge new area of basically politicking in advance of an election.
Well, welcome to Santiago.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here.
To have you in my show.
Great, thank you, Paloma. It was really,
And I don't know, really welcome here.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
You have to say bye to people who's watching Paloma TV.
Bye. Bye, Paloma TV watchers.